Man, after I think 5 years, it might be about time I update that intro. It's getting a bit old. But anyway, hello and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap Christmas edition. Won't be a long one. I always say that. We always say that because the wife is about to walk out the door, so I'm dadding at the same time. And while iPads and snacks have been placed with child, that doesn't always mean they will stay out of the office for too long. But that's life. That's life. Now, people who are watching, before we start, people who are watching, say hello in the comments, and I'll probably try and open up separately the LinkedIn one, just because it gets a bit hit and miss as to whether we get LinkedIn comments come through. I'm going to pick someone who's watched and commented today, and we'll chuck out there a year's subscription to Autocar into the mix. That's well into the massive 3 figures of prizes.
Generosity pound, Richard.
Hey. Look, we gave some Autocar subscriptions to AutoSure for their gut cancer fundraiser this year, and they went above retail at the auction. So
Mick Doherty's on. He said hello.
Yeah, he's his first in the mix, but it's not the first. It's gonna be random. Of course, often there is only one person watching that we can see, so maybe it will be the only one. Look, for those who wonder how many people do actually watch this thing, we don't actually entirely know, and the reason behind that is that because we're multicasting across to 3 or 4 different platforms depending on the week, on multiple accounts, our system doesn't entirely show us who's watching. I think we only really see who's watching on YouTube, whereas most of our viewers live are actually on LinkedIn. And our biggest viewing is after the event on LinkedIn. And the averages we see bounces between 150 and 300 people watch the stream after about a week. But from what we can see, it gets, from what I've heard or picked up, it does get media monitored and gets referred to people by some of the professional firms. So yeah, we do get a bit of cut through with this thing, which is nice for anyone really wanting to target certain people within the industry with a bit of money. Just saying. Anyway, we have another big thing to discuss today, and we're going to say this at the start so we can mock him mercilessly during the show itself, and that is that it is David Crawford's, and Graham, do you want to do this with me? Watch what my hands do. Last show. Because neither Graham or I honestly believe it will be his last show, and he will pop back up at some point. But what are you off to do other than sit there itching to jump back on the show again, David?
I'm just I've got a few other irons in the fire, and wanting to sort of get out and about. I just can't. I can't be a regular anymore because of the way in which my weeks pan out going forward. I'm currently chair of a board for a company in horticulture, and I'm looking to pick up another directorship, which will then mean I have other commitments that I'm trying to sort of bend my mind around.
Mm-hmm. And bend your mind around, David. Does that therefore assume that we're providing you with a platform for mental gymnastics every Friday, perhaps giving you something to think about, or it's been not as easy as you thought?
Well, I've enjoyed it immensely, and yes, it is one of those things that you have to think sometimes quite carefully what you say, or more carefully about what you do not say. In terms of liability, is occasionally I wanted to say a few things and I bit my tongue and thought, no, I better not say that, not in a public forum anyway. But in terms of issues, policies, debates, things that are happening, the automotive sector is rather dynamic, so there's always something to talk about.
Yeah, we've never been short of material, that's for sure.
No,
Sorry.
no, no. But I think you'll still pop in once in a while. And yeah, it's obviously been great having you on board. Great having that many years of experience. And I'm gonna be careful. We have touched on this little trope before, but there was a bit of a thing when you were in the MIA role where people would sometimes joke about you sitting in a meeting and going, "When I was at the NZTA or whatever like that."
I was an official.
Well, I was never at the NZTA.
At the ministry. But I've got to say that's been very useful to us here at the on the live, being able to pull out that information and experience from that back catalogue has been very useful to us. So thank you.
Yeah, that saying, officials always hated it when I would say that. In fact, when Leo Mortimer worked for me as well, and he had even more years in the Ministry of Transport, when the pair of us turned up at meetings, and if there were people who didn't know our backgrounds, and they would sort of say things, and Leo and I would look at each other and say, actually, they better know just what our background is, because they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes just a little bit. And so I found myself having to say it more often than what I ever wanted to, which I think is a little bit of a shame, because when people are representing sectors, I'm going to say it, but back in the day, when I was having to liaise with people from industry working in various government agencies, I did my homework before the meetings. I wanted to know who was turning up, what the background is, what their issues were, what they supported, what they didn't, and why. And I think it's incumbent on officials to actually do their homework a bit more often than they do, and particularly in the automotive sector, because they just assume that we've got a vested interest and that's all there is. And that's not always the case. And they're sometimes surprised when industry turns up and say, well, actually, the two things that we want to do is represent our sector and have a good discussion. And by representing our sector, what we want to do is ensure that our sector has a really good marketplace to operate in, and that there are agreed minimum standards. And at that point, they sort of go, what? You're advocating for some standards? Yes, of course we are. We want a level playing field. So getting officials to understand there can be some really productive dialogue between industry and officials if they just do their homework a little bit better. And some did do that, and those meetings were really fruitful, and others just didn't.
Yeah. Well, we're going to touch more on. Sorry,
I was going to say just thinking about that is that it'd be far more productive in our sector if there was less of an adversarial approach taken from both sides. Actually, if you think about the relationship between government and industry, we go through a bit of almost like a sine wave curve between how we're viewed by officials in government, whether it's an adversarial position or whether it's a cooperative position, where we effectively all have the same end goal. It's just how we get there and the dialogue that we have. And I tend to think a lot of the fights and arguments and scraps we've had over the years would have been a lot simpler if we just sat down at the start and said, we're actually all on the same page. How we get there is all we have to debate, but the end goal is primarily we all have the same point.
Yeah, there's a famous, infamous, actually, it's better term, episode between my predecessor, who was at the Motor Industry Association, when I first started at the Ministry of Transport. I'd been in the hot seat, I think, 4 or 5 days, and the phone rang, and my PA says, "Oh, it's Perry." He doesn't sound happy, and he wasn't. I had to hold the phone out like this as he ranted for about 2 minutes. And then at the end, I just said to him, "Perry, it's under new management now. I want to know what presses your buttons. Why don't you come and have a coffee?" We sat down and we had a coffee, and it was a lot of argy-bargy for about an hour. And then after that, he settled down. And believe it or not, we actually had a really productive relationship after that, because he would then ring up and say, "I'm saying this because my members expect me to say it. I'm not sure that I necessarily go along with it, but be aware that we're going to say this, and it's going to come out in a press statement in about an hour or 2 hours. So give me a heads up." And that's the sort of relationship that I found incredibly productive. And you're right. I think from in an industry perspective, sometimes we can just get so frustrated that we turn up and we've got a batch of angry bees under our hat, just waiting to escape and sting somebody, and that's never productive either.
No. And Graham, when does your big career shift begin to move? What's the timing on you?
The boxes are all kind of packed. I'm working in an office right now that still has most of the architecture involved, but out on the dealership there, I can count 23 cars, and most of those will move to the new location. The movers are coming in on the 29th. So the Croydon business is going to survive. It is being taken to a much smaller model. And at this stage, again, it's unlikely that it'll have my involvement in it. That's still a point of contention, possibly short term, but not long term. So it really is a holding pattern. And you know what? Somewhat conveniently, this time of the year, all the guys we speak to have just said the same thing. It's actually been a really quiet couple of weeks, which has kind of suited us to an extent to allow us to get out there and get the hard stuff, the jobs done. So then that's the end of an era. I've been involved in this business for some 28 years now. And unfortunately, no gold watch, no 5 weeks of annual leave, none of that. It's just coming to a little bit of a whimper, which is sad. But we'll see what happens next.
Yeah, I would have come out and seen you out there 2001, 2002, around then.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep. I started in this business, the Croydon business, but the first time I came back was at the very end of 96, where I needed a few weeks' work in between living in America, and I ran out of visa time, had to come back to New Zealand, get my visa reorganised and head back to LA. But the second time was towards the end of 97, and Nick actually had written out on a piece of paper, because we didn't do faxes very well back in those days, did we, Nick? Had written out an offer for me to return back from Los Angeles and run the business when he wanted to go to Japan and start buying cars. At that point, the Croydon business was revolved around buying locally. Nick had been to Japan once, seen what was possible, and wanted to go and do it on a regular basis. To do that, needed someone to run the business, and that's where I stepped in. So I came back from LA, flew in one day, and was on the ground starting with the very next one. So, and that was back at the end of 1997.
End of an era. And I think, look, as far as that kind of dealership goes, you guys are one of the few that kind of remained there to an extent. You know, a lot of the names from that era have all very much, those that have remained have changed in format. I think probably one of the big ones that's still hanging on is GBI. But most of the others have, trailed off, changed into smaller yards, as more warehouses is the common thing, or
that's right,
taken over by one of the chains. It's a bit of an end of an era, I think, for the industry. You think of the number of that size style business that used to be along the Point Strip, used to be along the Greyland Strip, used to be along Mount Wellington Strip. They are largely gone.
We were old school. We've tried to shift with the times, obviously, in the way we do things and how we operate. We were one of the very first ones to embrace having a website for your dealership. I think we were one of the very first to have a high-speed internet-based website where you had the ability to not just load it up with bins and bongs. We were one of the first to sign on with, at that stage, the Auto TV concept, to have you broadcast live morning TV show.
I was on that.
yeah, that's right. So, and I was sort of really keen to see how we could sort of push the boundaries out a wee bit in terms of customer service and expectation. I came into a business, an industry that just felt like it was a bunch of cowboys and sharks and gold chains. And it's funny, to this day, one of the taglines I use on my videos that I do is that when you come to this dealership to buy a vehicle, you're not going to get a salesperson in a white coat and gold chains and white shoes dripping with hair grease and a fancy haircut. And that's quite true, because I think the industry has had that reputation for so long that people are almost surprised to come along and see just normal people hustling them into the first thing they can find with the finance contract. But it is now, unfortunately, a little bit old school, I guess.
Yep. But well, we'll see how things move on.
The issue that I've got around that, just to finish that up, is working onto a new career. I actually don't want to move into a business that has that that opposite mantra where it's just all about the flat haircut and the Hellenstein pants that are 2 sizes too small and just hustle, 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 hustle. Because ultimately I see the clients, the customers as the losers. And then your dynamic relationship that you have with them over the next 1, 2, 5, 10. We've got customers that come in here that we sold vehicles to those 28 years ago. And if you do things right, they'll keep buying from you. And I think a lot of this industry has that one-hit wonder mentality, and they wonder why the people don't return.
I think Mrs. McDonald might want to see you in 2 sizes too small Hellenstein pants, though.
Yeah, I don't want to see that, Richard. Trust me. Sure, really worry me.
As a customer of buying vehicles, the one thing I really dislike is the heavy come on as soon as you walk onto a car yard. When I walk onto a car yard, I expect somebody to walk over and greet me.
Yes.
And then I say, I'm just having a look. I know where you are if I want to come and have a chat to somebody. And then I expect to be left alone to have a look because, I do a bit of window shopping, but then I also want to have a look and a casual think about things. And then if I want to take it further, I'll ask some questions. There are some car yards I will not walk onto because you're not given the freedom to do that. It's just a hard sell.
No,
so irony of this discussion is that all the things that I myself with AutoTalk Live teach dealers to do, it's probably a lot of stuff that we ourselves hate the second we walk into a yard. Now, part of that's because we are educated buyers. Yeah, we've had this discussion before around that. I'm not, my thing is I barely want to go on the yard. I just want them to text message me. In fact, if I do go on the yard, I want them to sit at the edge of the yard and text message me from the edge of the yard.
Funny, that's one of the tricks that we learned early on was stop phoning up your customers. And so the beauty of social media or messenger or text or things like that, or WhatsApp, was that you could actually relate to your customers in a way that they were prepared to interact with you. You got far more likely to get a response if you sent them a message than if you phoned them up and they go, oh God, it's that freaking car dealer I spoke to. He just won't leave me alone. Whereas messaging was a really good way of keeping in touch with people, just reading your audience. But hey, look, if you're out there in the business and it works for you to have the guys with the Hellenstein's pants on and the flash Zs cut into the side of their hair, and they're all about the hustle right now, and the minute you don't show any attention, run away to get the next one, hey, look, it works for you, fantastic, go do. You do you. But I think there's still a gap in the marketplace for what I would call, and this sounds very un-Grahamy left-wing here, is respectful business.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is something that I have to admit it's a pet hate of mine is that once I have purchased a vehicle, then I expect if something goes wrong in the next 3 months, I'm going to get some prompt follow-up as soon as I raise the issue.
Yeah.
And that's with well, I haven't bought that many new vehicles, so most of my experience was with used vehicles, and some of them just...
Isn't that ironic that coming from the Motor Industry Association, which sells new vehicles, and here's the man.
Well, if they were able to bring in the vehicles that I wanted to buy, then I might have. But
yeah. I don't. Did they ever give you, David? Did your team ever give you shit for buying a used import Skyline at the time when you were the chief executive of the MIA?
I think I bought that after might have been right at the end. No, but I did buy a used Subaru station wagon B-Spec that had the Tiptronic gearbox as opposed to CVT. I refused to buy a CVT gearbox. Don't ask me why. It's just a thing. I don't like them. So sometimes I have to buy a used import rather than a New Zealand new used vehicle because they've got the right gearbox for me, for what I want to do. Yes. And the reaction was, oh, okay, yeah, bring us up when you need to service it or you want parts. So some of the in Subaru was particularly like this sort of we're quite happy if you buy a used vehicle because we've got parts for you and they make a bit of money out of the parts. And
Safari were always very, very happy with the car park. They were very much like they didn't care where it came from. They wanted to grow the car park.
Yeah, and
probably because certain Subarus need an awful lot of very expensive parts.
Yeah,
but they weren't until they were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right, I've got a little co-host here.
After purchase service, that's the anxiety spot.
Yes. Yeah, you're gonna sit and watch, are you, mate?
This is. I'll do it this way. This is the Richard Mark II.
Yes. She likes cars, so that's helpful. Hey, mate.
Yeah, that is. Funny enough, my son is the same. He has been raised to be an absolute total car junkie. And so cars and trains, actually. But now at the age of 19, yeah, he can quote off most motor vehicle statistics probably faster than his dad can, and all little technical details and bits and pieces. I'll tell you what, just one little other point to raise on that, talking about kids and things. I went to a car event a couple of weekends ago. I won't say where it was, only because it was a legal event, but in the modified car scene. And I came away and it
makes it sound like it's not a legal event.
No.
Sorry,
but the car scene is alive and well. And any sort of fears I had that our kids are just not interested in cars anymore, and they're all just about the, how many swipes on the hot card and all they can have and bits and pieces. I came away and thought, no, we are just fine. We're doing great. Thank you very much. The car scene has got years left of passion in it.
The question you've got to ask with that car scene, and this comes from recent experiences I've had, is, was that car scene that you say there were plenty of kids there, were they kids or were they 35-year-olds? Because that's something I've had a couple of times lately where I go, man, there's so many young people here. This is great. And then I realize that they are all business owners with kids, but they look like kids to me. So are you sure, Graham?
Old man turning up, Richard.
Are you sure?
I caught up with people there that I knew back from our racing days that are also in their late 50s and bringing their kids along. And there were quite a few that I would have to say.
They're in their late 50s, so their kids are probably 30.
Yeah. And there were also those that were definitely sub 20. So there was a wide spread of people there. And don't forget, if your dad or your mum was involved in the car scene back in the day like we were, then there's a fair chance your kid are probably going to be as well. So maybe there were mums and dads bringing along the kids. I remember when I used to race those P10 Primeras down in Nielsen Street in Onehunga and do skids in the RX2s, and we all had those sort of discussions too. We all did shitty things in cars back in the day.
Or wrap the odd car around a pine tree, as I did.
Yeah,
it was a Toyota Hilux Surf, and it was a Macra Carver. Anyway, anyway, is there actually,
apart from David buggering off, absolutely to never come back on the show again until he does? Is there any actually news out there?
There's some big news out there. There's a story I'm working on, which I'm not going to talk too much about now, but I'm probably going to drop early next week. I won't name the details now, but did you know that there has been a car launched in the last month in New Zealand, 2 months in New Zealand, with only 2 airbags? A new passenger car in New Zealand in 2025 with 2 passenger airbags.
A car or a van?
A car. A passenger car.
Well, okay. So first question, Richard, is what's the legal requirement for airbags in New Zealand?
Well, here's the thing, Graham, because it's a discussion that I have been involved in a lot over the years. The standards are minimum standards, as usual, and as long as it can meet the frontal impact and a number of other things, then it can be imported. Then there is the ANCAP rating, which is the new vehicle assessment, and that is not a regulatory, that is a requirement. That is purely and solely a marketing and educational program by the members of ANCAP. And they tend to want to promote the latest and the greatest. So what the distributors will find out is that there will be a market for a car that has only 2 airbags. It'll be a limited market, but they will be sold on price probably. I don't know the details. I will assume that it currently does not have an ANCAP rating. And then if it does go to be ANCAP tested, it'll be lucky to make 3 stars at that. It'd have to be pretty good on all sorts of other things.
So
It's only got 2 airbags, it hasn't got a lot of other safety assists. Therefore,
here's the delicate situation: was that the car got a 3-star Euro ANCAP, and the distributor in New Zealand was, while they didn't publicise it, they did not shy away from that rating, and in fact used it as a comparative method and noted that the car was only 1 star short of a 4-star. The issue being was that the European car,
at maths.
1 point, as in not 1 star, 1 point away from a 4-star.
Okay.
1 point.
The flip side to that was that the Euro car tested by Euro NCAP had the 6 airbags, had the advanced driver attention camera, had eCall, all the things that add up on points. It's a very awkward situation. So
then again,
no one's done anything wrong, but certainly it hasn't landed particularly well, I don't think.
There's nothing illegal with it. It'll meet all the rules and the regulations, but it'll have a tough time marketing. Then what ANCAP Australia will do, New Zealand Australia will do, is they will do a comparative assessment. So they'll take a Euro assessment and look at, is it the same in terms of the safety assist technology fitted, this and that. And if it's not, then they will give it a different rating. So, and the way the new car assessment program works is it's regionalised. So you cannot advertise a Euro 3 car here with a Euro badge. You can say in plain language it's got a Euro 3 star. But if you're going to put a badge on the vehicle, it has to be an ANCAP badge for this regional market.
I think the biggest hope for the subject in this case is they don't get made an example of by ANCAP, because there's been a couple of cases over the last couple of years. The cases being the Renault Zoe and the Mitsubishi Express, which were similar cases of not necessarily bad crash results, but certainly lacking safety features, where the agency chose to make an example of them. I hope that doesn't happen in this case. So, yeah.
I'm going to say it's an interesting dilemma for the industry, for us, actually, for anybody involved in observing the industry is, and I'm not saying whether it's good or bad or indifferent to have 2 airbags, but is it our position to have a moral compass and say that vehicle should have more than 2 airbags, or it shouldn't be sold here because it only has 2 airbags?
I'm going to chuck another bit of petrol on this. Is that, and I may be entirely wrong here, but as I recall it, there has certainly been unofficial niggles from the new car side of the trade, and certainly from the government side of the trade in recent years, that side airbags should be mandatory on used imports. That call has been made previously. Then the argument goes, if it's not law, then it's not a problem, really, is it?
No, but it's not law. You can't mandate it, so that's why they would call for it. And I think some distributors will call for it, and others won't. But I also recall a time when, particularly during the first 2 of the 3 terms of the EV leadership group, where I raised on a number of occasions the challenges that the new vehicle sector was facing with used imported Nissan Leafs, who were getting a used car safety rating based on new Leafs sold into Australia and New Zealand. Yet when they were imported, because Japan at that stage didn't really promote their Japanese new car assessment program, it was just a side issue, it wasn't something they pushed. They took out bits of the car to make it lighter. So a used Nissan Leaf was nowhere near the same. In fact, they would never have got onto the batters.
It was more complicated. It was more complicated than that, because the first rounds of Leafs sold in Japan had the full gambit of airbags, and then after they did the first update, and you can tell the difference by in the boot, you look and there's a beam across the boot or there's not a beam across the boot. At that point it depended on spec level.
But it wasn't just the airbags. It was like taking out out of structural things out of doors and out of the rear of the vehicle and things like that to make it structurally lighter. So that was the issue, is that there is a lack of comparativeness between new and used, and then there's a lack of comparativeness between new and new in terms of what distributors can legally import if they want to take on the marketing.
I would like to know, I won't name the car right now, though you guys know who it is. There is a Japanese brand in New Zealand with a small hatchback that was guilty of that in recent years. The New Zealand distributor wasn't, but the Japanese distributor certainly was. So that's not just a used import brush. There's been new car cases of that as well.
No, I agree. It's because none of it's illegal. So the idea is, if I can bring it in and it's legal and I can sell it, well and good, let's do it.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's an interesting one. So that story will be coming out next week. It's
There was a big story this week though, Graham, and it's something that I've been thinking about since I've heard it.
I know which one you've been thinking about.
Yeah. Yes.
This one?
No, that's the December issue of AutoTalk.
No, the one
sorry.
No. That one. Yes.
Yeah. Did this catch you two by surprise?
Caught everyone by surprise.
I was surprised and not surprised. So I was around. I think I was acting director of minerals in the Ministry of Commerce when the Ministry of Commerce became IMBI. And I think I was a little bit skeptical about it when it happened. But I've since seen the way in which IMBI was managed. Its first CEO, a lot of it came down to who they put in as CEO. IMBI's first CEO was David Small, and he was an exceptionally good operator. And the advantage of what IMBI had over independent departments is that then the heads of those other agencies became second-tier managers in the overall IMBI empire. But when they sat around their senior leadership team meeting, they then began to talk about the policies and issues that they were promoting. And then the others could say, well, we have an impact on that. So a lot of that sort of stuff that was previously cross-agency and difficult to liaise with became easier to liaise with. And I know from my time in the Ministry of Transport, when I was chairing the Road Safety Management Group, which was a group of general managers, second-tier managers, between the 5 core agencies involved in road safety, it was difficult. We had to have these regular meetings, but each of the agencies could go away and say, well, we report to our own minister and we do this and do that. And we didn't always know what each other was doing. And in fact, we didn't. NZTA and the Ministry of Transport didn't always know what each other was doing either. So my thinking on this is that the merger could be good in that it will force and encourage a forum where the second tier leaders around the table with the CEO will sort through some of those previously cross-boundary issues before it gets presented to ministers, rather than ministers having to rap people on the knuckles and say, get your heads together. Because what ministers wanted, they want joined up policy. They don't want, and I've had this said to me in all of the roles that I had in government when I was before ministers, was, that's fine, but that's just your perspective. What about this agency? What about that agency? What do they think? Come back to me with some joined up thinking. I don't want individual dots. So this could be good in that. On the other hand, what goes round comes round. During the Rogernomic years, we had big departments disbanded and made into more agile individual units that could focus on their bit. So time will tell whether it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, but I'm hopeful.
Look, the other thing to remember when the MB was set up, that it was under the ministerial auspices of Stephen Joyce, who was no dummy, and that was probably a big part of getting it off to a strong start. Chris Bishop is a highly thought of minister, but I'm not sure he's necessarily got the detail and commercial nous that Stephen did in regards to putting together a big organisation like this. I find the timing and 2 aspects that's interesting. The timing and the time frame they've given to get it done. And if you go to our website for that story, we have comments from all the major associations on that. Unfortunately, timing wise, the magazine only has reactions from one, but we have the reactions from all in there. And the consistent theme through there is that is not a lot of time to do the work that they're talking about doing. And potentially that could really kick into touch a lot of the work that they really should be doing in that meantime. The other question that's been raised is potentially for some, they would have preferred to have seen a merger between the Ministry of Transport and the NZTA, and go into that discussion of whether we do need a separate ministry and agency for the transport sector, and whether that may have been a better cost-saving wrap-up merger alongside potentially what's going on here.
That's been talked about over the years. It's quite different though, because it's NZTA is largely operational, where they have some areas where they do tend to deal with some policy, usually little p as opposed to big P. But this merger is all about big P policy, big strategic issues, integration, ensuring that the ministers get joined up advice. But two things, Richard. One, timeline, it's unrealistic. Even MB wasn't done in that timeline. They had a very ambitious timeline for MB, and it took longer. And secondly, there will be a lot of uncertainty, and that will undeniably cause some delay in some important issues that need to be dealt with. Where the pace of consultation and change and discussion and work needs to continue rather than to slow down. So it's going to be an interesting time in the new year. And it'll be a lot of
potentially talking about new CEO within 4 months, which is nothing for a corporate appointment, and the whole thing underway and the merged ministry running in 7 months, which is just, I can't see it happening.
No.
It's taken me 4 months. It's taken me 4 months to move house. I'm not sure how you can merge 4 major ministries in that time as well. The other interesting aspect to be is going to be that this new policy within the government is that no ministry shall answer to more than one. No ministry shall answer to more than one minister, I believe, is what they were targeting. And how that will work, because there's currently, I think, 5 ministers representing those divisions. So who's going to end up as super minister overseeing this whole thing?
Well, I mean,
look at MMP though. This isn't part of it. If you look at the politics of it, is because MMP and throwing up ministers and associate ministers from different parties, perhaps in coalition, but not necessarily on the same song sheet, throwing up some, so we say, confusion over policy directions from an associate and a senior minister within the same department. So it's trying to eliminate that cross-party issue politics that's been going on.
Well, they've always, the way that ministerial appointments have been done, they always do have a lead minister. So in transport, under the Helen Clark and King era, so Annette King was Minister of Transport. They had Harry Dynhoven as Minister for Transport Safety, had Judith Tizard as Associate Minister for Transport Environment, and then David Parker was off to the side, who had the lead role in transport climate change issues. But Annette King was the lead minister, so if anything came to shove, she had the final say. MB has, I forget, 7 ministers across all of their ambit. The workload in that, you cannot have one minister who's going to be able to have a detailed knowledge of all of the things that this new mega agency is going to be covering. It's just too big, too many issues, too many details. But it will have a lead minister. And I think having a lead minister, the one thing that MB lacked was a lead minister. But having a lead minister, I think, is an important thing. They have lead ministers for portfolios, but when you've got an agency that's got multiple portfolios, I may be incorrect, but I'm not aware of lead ministers across that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Go read this through. There are some interesting takes there. Boiling down the concerns. It ain't going to happen anywhere near the time frame they think it will, and it is likely to slow down some pretty critical work that's underway. The Clean Car Standard Review being a prime one of them, but also reviews around emission standards and safety stuff. Though in some of those cases, might be handy pushing it back a little. Anyway, we'll see.
The big picture, Richard, is that New Zealand, my personal view is that New Zealand is, if not brilliant, when it comes to things it can do really well, at stifling itself in terms of, we use the word growth, at least in projects, infrastructure, decision-making around cohesive projects going forward. And it seems no matter what we do, we end up in the mire, whether it's public works or it's roading projects or it's subdivisions, all the things they've talked about. And maybe this is just a bit of a hat tip to say, you know what, no matter what we do, we're not terribly good at joining all the dots together. This is one way we can actually serve some of those really large infrastructure projects that have been talked about for the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years in New Zealand. But it's having a framework that we can now get cohesive decisions on making them happen.
Let's be clear. I'm for the merger, but I think that's also a bit of a bit of a misstatement of the situation. In that, I think sometimes with the ministries, you do need some separation for some dynamic tension. I actually think one of the concerns I have with this is having environment in that shop, because I think sometimes the environment ministry potentially does need to be sitting to the side as devil's advocate and opposing some of these big things. It's potentially harder to oppose from within in the house than out of house.
Well, if you go back, sorry, Richard, if you go back to, I'll give you an example of that. If you go back to 1989, and Labor went out and National got voted in, and they were bringing in the Resource Management Act, which is also going by the way now. Originally under Labor, that Resource Management Act had the Crown Minerals Act included in it. So it had environment and minerals. And National separated it because they wanted some creative tension between the productivity of mining and the environmental consequences of mining, and put in the controls on that. So I'm with you on that. And I think that's going to be one of the trade-offs on this, is how do they maintain some of that necessary creative tension in policy. I'm neutral on whether they should or shouldn't do this. I'm going to watch and see what happens. I tend to like less big agencies than over mega agencies.
The one of the things that with all this, New Zealand, and going back to your comment, David, New Zealand's very good at getting in the way of itself of developing, growing, doing certain things. The example I always look to go back to is Melbourne. Melbourne at certain times really need to grow, they really need to go up, need to put more housing in, need to develop faster, all these kind of things. And so they did a lot of change within their structures to enable that kind of stuff to happen, to loosen off the rules, to drop that planning thing, to push that environmental thing to the side. And what you've ended up with in parts of Melbourne, parts that are great, but certainly when you get further out, is really living compromises with cities. If a development goes in Auckland, that the footpaths are going to match up. There's not going to be some random strip of land rotting in the middle there, all those kind of things. You go to Melbourne and walking down the middle of a subdivision, and it changes between two different subdivisions or between one patch of development and another. The footpath crosses the road, the width of the footpath and the road narrows, there's some random ditch that just runs through the middle of somewhere. So you've got to find, I think we've gone too far, but at the same time, I go to other places where they don't have those controls. A lot of parts of America are a prime example as well. And you end up with negative impacts from that as well. The line needs to be somewhere in the middle, about making things easy and making things hard, but you've got to have that dynamic tension to make sure things work properly in the middle of it. So my take. Good. But again, it'll be because people are sitting there behind the scenes chopping. Oh, he's a raging lefty. Raging lefty. Anyway. Speaking of Melbourne, Ford has named a new CEO for Australia and New Zealand. I'm going to say New Zealand and Australia because we're better than them.
Yeah, get it right.
Even though we've got the great Annalise Satina running New Zealand, they still seem to insist on tacking the name, the New Zealand title of the Australian one. Ford Motor Company has appointed Fadi Mawal as President and CEO of Australia and New Zealand effective January 1, 2026. He's a 31-year veteran of Ford, most recently the CFO for the International Markets Group out of Bangkok, which oversees Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Africa, and the Middle East. Now, here is the crazy good bit as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure as far as a lot of people within the Ford network will be pleased with. Mel's career with Ford began in the early 1990s as a forklift driver in a Melbourne parts and service warehouse. He spent 15 years in the finance function before joining Ford's Asia-Pacific strategy team, then serving as CFO. Andrew Burkick, who has been in the role now, is heading off where is he? Off to drive forward sales and service strategies across the IMA group. But here's the thing: I hear of so many executives and that who will go and spend some time on the floor, and they've gone and seen what the workers are up to. They understand the business from the ground floor up. I'm sorry, but you find another CEO who understands the ground floor up like the forklift driver. You will not find one.
Yep.
You will not find one, because they have been involved in literally the system at the bottom of the hill that keeps the thing driving. It keeps the thing moving. So I think that's
arguably the most
gem of appointment. Yeah. It's I think that's great. It's like the best, or some of the most successful car dealers are groomers, right? Because they know the detail that goes into the industry.
Yeah.
So yes. Do you remember any heads of distributors before that have had that kind of experience? I know there's been a few guys work their way up from the tech side.
Well, yeah, probably. I think I can vaguely recall one other who started out as a basically cleaner, odd job sort of thing, and worked their way up. But mostly they've either started on the tech or the sales and worked their way up. In terms of calling it the appointment in charge of Australia and New Zealand, for a lot of the distributors, they do report through to Australia.
I know I'm being a bit silly there, but we do have a good Ford New Zealand team in New Zealand. So.
Yeah, we do, and I mean it was the same when General Manager was GM were big, and they still have it now. They have a New Zealand, somebody who's in charge of the New Zealand operation, but they've always reported through to the Australian same Ford. But a number of them are really strongly independent, but they will also, for reporting purposes, work up through Australia from a regional basis. And that's largely just due to the size of our market.
Right. Toyota has confirmed they will start off providing e-call on vehicles in New Zealand from early next year. New Zealand will introduce connected vehicle technology, including e-call emergency response services with the arrival of the 6th generation RAV4 in early 2026. System will also go into the Lexus ES sedan later in 2026. So that's SOS calling plus a whole pile of other tech there. Of course, that is a big thing over the next year or two as ANCAP makes e-call a requirement for a 5-star. Still a debate around, who takes the call, who does what, how it integrates with 111 services. There is a big minefield of all that stuff still being worked through.
It is a tricky issue, and I recall first engaging in the e-call idea back in 2006. And I learnt, much to my surprise, that when telecom was established from the old post office, they generated what they called the gold coin share or the dollar share, which was the analog 111 system, and they had to maintain it, and successors also had to maintain it. The problem with eCall, it requires a digital platform. And so some work was done then, and then again it was revisited during my tenure at the Motor Industry Association. And we ran into the constant problem that if the government was going to pick it up, then they had to renegotiate that gold share, gold coin share. And Treasury was always very nervous and didn't believe it stacked up. So the onus has now come on to distributors to put in a smorgasbord between the distributors of their own individual arrangements. So BMW's had it for a while with a number of their vehicles, but it's not a consistent equal digital platform like we have in other countries. So there's a bit more, I think, a bit more work to go on this, but it's good to see it coming.
I think it is developing. My understanding, and I'm still working on the story, is that one of the Australian automotive clubs, which has established a very strong system over in Australia, is looking at applying that, bringing that to New Zealand as well on a commercial basis. I'm sure the AA is working on similar things as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that space develops over the near future. Interestingly, I believe recently we had one of our first official saves of someone through the Apple system. So Apple essentially has an equal system built into their phones that identify car crashes, call authorities, and send digital information out to authorities and identify people at the same time. So it's kind of interesting. We're finally getting equal in cars, and then maybe in 5 years' time it'll all be replaced by just your phone in your pocket or your Apple Watch doing it for you.
Could very well, could very well be the case. But the final comment I have on eCall is that it's suitable for a country like New Zealand and Australia, where you've got big distances between urban areas, and we do a lot of driving in areas where it's difficult to spot if somebody's gone off the road. You don't need it if 99.9% of your population is in urban areas, but of course that's not the case. So it's good to see it finally starting to become more commonplace.
Now, it's one of the areas where they now consider the Apple system superior. As the Apple system and Samsung will be going the same way, can send the alerts out via satellite, which cars by and large can't. It's an interesting one there.
My wife's 2013 Lexus has got, an import Lexus has got the Toyota version of the eCall system, the button in the roof, which she has pressed a couple of times and said, if I press this, am I going to get a helicopter flying down from Osaka? Hasn't happened yet.
My daughter punched the button in a Kia, and I had to call Kia's PR rep on a Sunday morning to say, can you just let them know that was an accident? So, yeah.
Also, I just remembered, somebody had a birthday this week. Didn't they, Graham?
Oh, yeah, true, yes. Yeah, and he didn't answer his phone when I was trying to call him.
He didn't, and you didn't call back either. What's it a friend to you?
Busy one.
Yeah, older, uglier, not any wiser.
Hey, look. When you're in your situation where you in recent years had a rather substantial heart attack, every year older is.
Yeah, in for the win. I know, right? Yeah, excellent. I didn't even get exciting coffee out of you. So, what are friends for?
I called and you didn't answer. You didn't call me back. So, it's look. Anyway.
Even David put a post on my Facebook page.
I kind of stopped doing that. I'm a bit over Facebook.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, older, uglier, still here.
Yeah.
Haven't pushed up the lids on the nails on the lid of the box yet to have a peek, so I think I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Some dealers though have not done the same. Trade numbers slipped below 2,600 as long-term decline continues. Number of registered motor vehicle traders in New Zealand has fallen to a new low in the current data set, dipping below the 2,600 mark in November. According to the latest statistics from the Motor Vehicle Traders Register, there were 2,595 registered traders in November 2025, which represents a slight decline from October. It's dropping. It's dropping.
Yeah.
238 over the last 12 months. Now, some of that, of course, is just natural people not, cyclical through the year, but she's getting pretty low.
Most of the time we talk about this, and I bring up the old line that I usually say, look, it is a bit cyclical, and we've got everything from finance companies to tow operators, rationalizing, increasing, downsizing. But, I'm going to say it this time. We have noticed there are less dealers out there. For every 2 that close, you used to say, well, there's 2 that are opening around the corner. But no, I think there's been a genuine, small but genuine decline in the number of traders. Even at our way, I look at it and say we've got some that have opened up again. But if you look at the overall picture of Auckland and say there's less of us out there, and that is maybe just a function of the times.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Last story of the day. A really quick one. Doesn't need a huge amount of comment. Oh, where is it? I took it off. Eagers Automotive marks 2025 Leadership Program graduates. Eagers Automotive New Zealand celebrated the 2025 graduates of its Emerged and Advanced Leaders Program at an end-of-year ceremony held at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. Now in its 7th year, the program is a key component of the company's strategy to develop future leaders from within its workforce. Employees are nominated by leadership teams and selected through a review process overseen by New Zealand Executive General Manager Mike Critchley and Regional HR Manager Deborah Rayland. This year's intake included 13 participants in the Emerging Leaders Stream and 8 in the Advanced Leaders Stream. Great to see people developing and growing in our industry. Great to see that there are a lot of women in that group as well. There's the names. You can read those there. if you want more than just the people in the 2 sizes too small Hellenstein pants with the Z's shaved into the side of their head, well, that's what you need to do. Invest in your people. It always pays off. It always pays off. So yes.
Can I just go back to the previous story about the number of traders reducing? Do you think, Graham, this is also influenced by a number of traders just getting bigger and bigger? And we say, we've seen in the last few years the rise of what I call mega car yards, where the big car yards with multiple sites.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that, David, but I think the effect of that we saw some time ago. If we're seeing the numbers right now, we're talking about this really on a quarterly basis, even drop it down to a monthly basis. You can analyze it whichever way you want. The decline I'm talking about is one we've seen over the last few months, or 3 or 5 or 6. And that's not due to mega sites. That's due to the overall contraction in particularly the sector that I work in, which is predominantly used imports, is the inability to find supply and the inability to sell. And eventually, an awful lot of deals on there right now, including a lot that are watching this show. I know you're hanging on by your fingernails, and we keep on the little mantra saying that it'll just get a bit better. We'll just get through this month or next month or next month. And I think there gets a point where people say, you know what, I cannot do this anymore. And I think for quite a few people out there right now, they're making some tough calls over the Christmas period as to whether they're going to go back to the yard next year, or what they're going to do, what their lease arrangements require, if they own the property, whether it's better off being developed. But I'm talking about what I see right now is not mega sites. Those changes occurred a long time ago. And the only reason we didn't see such a drop away in traders was that occurred at the same time as we had a population explosion in New Zealand requiring vehicles. And so the pool of available cars matched the pool of available people coming in that wanted to buy vehicles. Well, right now, we don't have that. We don't have a large amount of net immigration to New Zealand. So the pool is static, if not going back a little bit. And so now the gaps in that start to expose themselves, where there just aren't the sales to keep the traders going in that smaller area.
Yeah, I mean, this time last year we were saying in the last quarter it survived to 25, and I don't think we envisaged 25 being the year that it was. It's really been quite tough.
Just horrid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you're still trading, and if you're still trading, you're thinking you're going to carry on to 2026. If you're a dealership operator right now, I take my hat off to you. I really do, because it has just been such a hard year for a lot of really good operators, really good, through not their own fault, not through poor management, not through poor decisions. It's just you do absolutely everything you can that's right, and the market will not play ball. And so Richard's got a domestic issue going on in the background there. So anyway, look, if my party message for 26 is, if you're going to make it go in 26 and you hang on in there, good on you. My absolute respect to you for keeping in there.
Yeah. Yes. I think the difference between today and when we were at this exact time last year is there is actually some glimmers of economic hope.
Yes.
Technically now, whereas this time last year, it was purely hope. None of the economic stuff. So, yeah. Yes. Anyway, that's us for this episode. Mick, you're the only person you were the only person watching. There's someone else watching now. I'm going to give us 30 seconds. There's someone else watching now. Say hello if you can. You're on the draw for this prize. And if not, then it's going to go to, and then I'll do a coin flip, but if not, it's going to go to Mick. So you got 10 seconds to say hello. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
This ain't an auction at the last minute bid.
1. No, Mick, you're getting a year's subscription to AutoTalk. There you go. Easy.
And Mick, you might know, Mick is actually a regular watcher of the show. Mick, hello. We've had conversations before. He's been a regular watcher and contributed opinions and bits and pieces too. So good on you, mate. It's good to have you in there watching us. We know a lot of other people watch the show as well, but it's just those that actually prepared to stick their neck out and comment. Merry Christmas.
Yes. Now, Maeve, do you want to have the last word? Well, two things. We will say goodbye to David. Thank you, David. It's not forever because you're going to be an occasional visitor, I have no doubt of.
Of course he is.
And Merry Christmas, everyone. Graham and I will see you next week. And Maeve, do you want to say Merry Christmas, everyone, before we go?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, mate.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, and hopefully Santa's left you some amazing presents under the tree.
We'll see.
Hey, everyone else, we have a
amazing
fantastic 2025 Christmas season. It's been great. It's been a real honour and privilege to sit here and talk shit with you all, to be fair as we do. And I hope you have a fantastic break away from your business, ready, refreshed, and revived, and let's pick some ass in 2026. Eh?
Yes.
And thank you guys for the
100%.
opportunity to participate on a regular basis. It's been fun while it's lasted, but as life moves on and decisions have to be made.
Yes, exactly.
And, we'll work for food.
Stay on the line and let's discuss that. Anyway, catch you, everyone. Say bye, Maeve.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great Christmas.